welcome to Good News Rhode Island, the show about Rhode Island and the people and places and events that make Rhode Island a great place to live, that build our communities. There are always people working behind the scenes, and on this show we try to show them to you so you know what's going on. I want to start by showing you a booklet that I got this week. It's called Gallery Night, Providence, and every third Thursday of the month, Providence has buses that take you around to different galleries. There's wine, there's food, and there's conversation with the artists. Maybe you could check it out and look for this little booklet in a place where you shop. Today, I want to welcome the League of Women Voters. All of us know about this organization, and all of us, or have heard of it, but most of us don't know very much about it. The League has been working since 1920 to make sure that women particularly, and now everyone, is able to vote and knows the issues and the candidates. So I want to welcome today the past president, Hollie Courage, and the current president, Jane Koster, who are both here to fill us in about what's going on in Rhode Island and a little bit about the national history. So welcome, and thank you for everything the League of Women Voters has done. I remember hearing about them when I was in high school, and I'm sure it was before because I wasn't born in 1920. But anyway, I want to thank you for all that you've done and the debates that you've held, and et cetera. So, Jane, you are the new president, and you know something of the history of what has gone on in Rhode Island anyway. Maybe you could start.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us here and for your audience to learn more about the League of Women Voters of Rhode Island. We're a very active group of a large number of members. We have over 120 members here in the state, which doesn't seem probably large to some of our fellow states and New England states, but we are a very active group of women and men who are members of the League of Women Voters. I came here in the 1970s from Vermont. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Vermont and majored in politics. Political science was my major, and history. So I've always been in love with that. So then I came to Rhode Island, and I was an educator for many years here, and then met the League of Women Voters and the women for whom I am just where I should be at this point. The League here is very active. You can find what our mission is on our website, leagueofwomenvotersrhodeisland.org. We are a voter education group. Of course, our founding from 1920 on, as Joanne has said. We are very interested in voter service, and I think a little later in the program we'll talk about all of the issues and the way that we get our word out to what we do for testifying and lobbying for different issues that are here in the state and which we have taken a stand on.
Well, thank you for being here, Jane. And Hollie Courage, you have been president for 10 years or so, at least. You know a lot about the workings nationally and here in Rhode Island. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about national history in 1920 when the League of Women Voters was started.
Okay, well, the League of Women Voters started with the suffrage movement. Let's see, the national, what's it called? National Association of Women's Suffrage Association, NASA. And the thing is that once the 19th Amendment was about to be passed, they realized, oh, we won't be fighting for suffrage anymore, but women will have to know how to use their vote. And so they formed the League of Women Voters at that point in 1919, and then once the amendment was was just on the eve of it, they actually formed it, made the group over into the League of Women Voters.
League was a big name then. I mean, yes. League of Nations. It meant coordinating and communicating among many people and many nations at that time.
Right, and people from Rhode Island rushed back here and immediately got 2 charters from the General Assembly, one for the State League and one for the Providence League. And, you know, we've been here ever since, amazingly. We go up and down in cycles with, well, particularly with women going back to work. That's been one of our toughest challenges, because
you are a volunteer organization, and so a lot of the volunteers hit the workforce, and that meant that your numbers, at least for daily meetings, were down.
It definitely was down, and one reason I lasted so long as State League president is that I was one of the few women who actually joined when they were young and stayed doing this as a volunteer, because I did not work. I stayed home with my children. This makes me a true dinosaur or something. But, you know, I did that, and that meant that it was, you know, I just did a whole lot of things gradually. Like I did newsletters, I was a voter service chair, I was treasurer. I just did a lot of different things within the league, and then I had all these connections.
Well, once you find something that you really believe in, then you can follow it through and do all these tasks that eventually lead to leadership in the group. Can you tell me some of the women historically who have been important for the League of Women Voters?
I would say immediately someone from Rhode Island, Alva Vanderbilt, who was connected, of course, very connected here in the summers in Newport, Rhode Island. Marble House, if we think of the beautiful mansion of Marble House in Newport, this is where she held one of the first women's caucuses on the steps of Marble House. And on the 90th anniversary,
fun to know.
Well, the 90th anniversary of the League of Women Voters, we had over 200 people come to Marble House and celebrate with a wonderful forum of women speaking to celebrate the 90th anniversary. She was really focused, too, on the kind of militant group that started there with Alice Paul in New York. So they connected with the group of women that were in the textile industry, the shirtwaist group, I think it was, and they went on strike. And when they were on strike, there were 8,000 women in a parade there in the early 1900s. And Alma became very interested in that. And then when she came to Rhode Island, she continued her interest in the League. So one of the women, truly, I think we can call her a Rhode Islander, was very active.
That is very interesting.
But a more modern woman was your mother-in-law. Margaret Koster was president of the League. I don't remember whether she was president of the State League once or twice, but she organized several leagues around the state. And I guess the last thing I remember her doing was she was on the Resource Recovery Board because she was so influential with that. And
so it seems as though the League of Women Voters is a place where people kind of learn to fly and then really do new things for the state.
Yes,
yeah, that is so true. I remember when I first started, and my mother-in-law was so active in the League when I came to Rhode Island and I met my husband. And I can remember one of the first meetings that I went to in Newport, and Hollie was there taping one of the forums that we were having, and she said, well, Jane, it's about time. But since then, and the women that are with us, I mean, we are so active in all that it is to educate people of the importance of the vote. So our issue, you know, and our website is very, very interesting and up to date now. So for any of the issues that we talk about.
And it is lwvri.org.
Yes, it is.
It's right on the poster here. Yes. Well, let's start at the beginning and say that you are nonpartisan, and I want you to explain what that means and maybe talk about some of the implications, because I'm sure people say that you are partisan and you have to continuously say you are not.
Well, we're a grassroots organization, nonpartisan. So when we, for example, go to the Hill, go to our State House to testify or to lobby on certain issues and certain positions that we have taken, we are very careful to be nonpartisan. And issues that are important to the voters in our state are what we look at. And we can talk later, whatever you wish, about the different issues that are important to us now. Our advocacy group in the state league is very active. At this point, we are looking at maybe 5 to 6 issues being on our voter service and our advocacy committees. The issues right now that are important to us are the master lever and doing away with the master lever on the ballot. We are interested in how magistrates are selected, and would like to see the selection of magistrates similar to how we select our judges in Rhode Island. And of course, the vote and voting machines, keeping voting machines up to date, the ballot itself.
It sounds as though there are a lot of issues. You have, most people know the League of Women Voters because of the debates, the presidential debates. Up until the 80s, I think, or the end of the 80s, you were negotiating and then running the debates. And that seemed like a wonderful honor for a group that started with women's suffrage. So I was always very proud of you, even though I was not a member. And so now you can tell us something about the debates that might be coming up for the primaries and possibly for the presidential elections.
Well, we have been active, and actually we have. Hollie and I met a few days ago with, we are known for our debates and for having them live and covered, and our panelists that we choose. So we have now partnered with Rhode Island Public Service, public
Television. Rhode Island Public Television has approached us about the statewide debates for all the offices that everybody isn't trying to cover. Everybody wants to do a mayoral debate. Everybody wants to do a gubernatorial debate. But they said, well, maybe we should go back to doing tapings for the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, the treasurer, the attorney general. All
these people impact our lives, I'm sure.
They are,
whether we know who they are or what their name is.
Absolutely, and it's in the recent past, it's become like everybody's almost forgotten these offices even exist. And Rhode Island PBS, to their credit, said, how about we do something about this?
In fact, we do have dates at this point where the 4 Thursdays in August, we are going to be taping live with these. So now our job is to go out and get the candidates and find some.
It's a terrible time for a season.
And finding the right candidates, all the candidates who want to give their voice as well.
There are restrictions on who can be on these. They have to be on the ballot.
Okay.
Pretty much. I think that's still our standard.
They have to really have all of the qualifications of the Secretary of State's office and the state, a very active campaign.
So you look into all of that.
We have to be careful, very careful.
Yes, otherwise you could get sued, as I said, about the national debate. Previous affair, I told you about the National League getting sued by all the candidates that wanted to be on at the debates. You'd be surprised how many there are candidates for president. If you look at your ballot, there's probably about 14 candidates on the ballot every presidential election, and you only see the 2 that you know.
So in Rhode Island, then there are a lot of people, a lot of groups stepping up to follow. Already. We have in your local leagues, we haven't talked about the local leagues at all, but your local league, the Providence League, has 5 debates that they're partnering with the Providence community.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe only 3, I think, but
3 at this point, and then another organization that you may be working with, and then our West Bay League, actually now called the Members at Large, and they already have 5, and I think that's what I'm thinking. They have already 5 debates that they'll be doing pre-primary and pre-general election.
Or at least.
You're watching Good News Rhode Island, and we're talking today to the League of Women Voters. We're so happy that you're watching with us because this is a group that probably you've heard of and need to know more about. You do voter registration still. There are people in our state, in Rhode Island, who have not registered. Some of them have just become citizens. But who are the others? Some people move from state to state, and as they've moved here, they need to register in good time. So how do you go about getting registration? I think you can go to your post office and you get...
Post office is not a place that's regularly voter registration, although just about everywhere else, the Registry of Motor Vehicles is one of the biggest places. And
so when people change their registration for their car, they can also change their voting registration.
And a lot of social service agencies, state service agencies, they also have it. And frankly, the Secretary of State will go out at the drop of a hat and register you. I mean, they will bring everything that's needed to get your voter ID. This is one of the big new things, that you have to have a photo ID for the elections. And Rhode Island went out of its way to make sure that people would have it. Other states have had lawsuits because they said it's too hard to get it. But
okay. So if you have a desire to vote, which I assume you do if you're a United States citizen, then you need to make sure that you have a voter ID registration, which includes a photograph of you. So that's very important. Okay, so one of the things that you do is education. You go around and talk to various groups, and you go around and talk with various leaders, and then you also put a lot on your website. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you're trying to make sure that if people have time, that they will read all of this information. Maybe you could talk a little bit about it.
Oh, we would love to talk about that. First of all, again, the website. And the Secretary of State's website is very complete in terms of all of that. What one of our new initiatives is in the League of Women Voters in the National League is to partner with the National League on something we call Vote 411. And Vote 411 is an online voter service catalog that we used to print and send out to our members and to as many people as we could connect with. But Vote 411 is very helpful for not only us educating the public in terms of who the candidates are and what their issues are, but also for the candidates. So we start very early. We've already started in bringing committees together who are going to work on that. It's a great deal of work because all of the information has to be uploaded onto that Vote 11 website. Vote 411 for the candidates offers them to put their issues and their positions on their issues, the important issues that they're talking about during their campaign. It allows them to put any videos that they may have from Facebook, their Facebook pages, and also YouTube videos that they might have. And on the other side, we are finding all the information from the candidates, listing them all, and together the League of Women Voters chooses about 5 questions on the issues that we have positions on, and ask for them to write a couple of essay answers to those questions, and then disagree or agree on certain issues. So
it's a little bit like a job interview.
Yes.
Now you have issues that are wide ranging, such as hunger in children, such as education and the opportunities that education brings, such as health care. Maybe we need to talk, we only have about 10 minutes left, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the issues that Rhode Island is facing, both in the local elections, in other words, the state elections, but also in the national elections. It seems to me that there are many issues that will impact a lot of people.
Where does one begin with that?
Well, just choose an issue.
Well, it's funny, you said there's so many
Federal
issues.
budget, how about that?
Oh, geez. Well, when the League first was formed, one of the presidents took a look at all the issues that everyone was interested in and said, it's a kettle of eels.
It is a kettle of eels.
And it's
I agree, it still is. It's getting bigger and bigger.
And it's so hard sometimes to deal with this. This is one reason some people find us, I think that we're partisan, because in presenting all the information, eventually somebody says, hey, that's more of
a Republican or a
Democrat
right.
position, and then they start saying we're political but not partisan. So we look at both sides and come out with it, and it's a balancing act. Like, for instance, Well, like with an issue that's gone by, it was the voting machines. When you remember the hanging chads, and all of a sudden we all had to have voting machines. Well, fortunately, Rhode Island actually missed that fight because we already had the computerized voting machines. But there was a terrible argument going on whether you should have touch screen or whether there had to be a paper base like the way ours are, that you just scan the ballots. And it was terrible balancing out all the needs of everybody involved, because at one point, somebody wrote this terribly incendiary comment about how terrible it was that the League had been influenced by the handicapped lobby. And I was thinking, what's wrong with working with the handicapped and
well, the
helping
other thing
that?
is, though, that some people might not be computer literate and they might be frightened away by having a computer voting machine. Anyway, there are logistical problems that you're dealing with.
But,
Yes.
and with that, too, I mean, your point is well taken in that there are still many in our communities who do not have access to a computer or are not as comfortable as we are with computers. So that, again, is our debates and our forums. You know, our advocacy is really pushing, bringing forums to the individual districts of our state. And as I said, there are 5 forums and debates already planned in East Providence, Bristol, Barrington, in Newport. And just this next week, we have a forum where we've invited our legislators to come in very early, but yet still a really good education for our communities before we go live and before we really start.
They're already campaigning, so
They are,
we need to hear what they say
exactly.
up front, and all the people having the same question is a really good way to find out what they believe and what you believe yourself.
And machines are still one of our issues, really, voting machines. They're still talking about that and how we can update that to be more. Early voting is one of the issues that we have a position on, so that there people can come in and same day registration. So those are issues. But when you ask about the federal budget, we're pretty more concerned with our membership here with our state budget and how it affects, for example, one issue that we have a stand on: education. We have a subcommittee from the State of Rhode Island League that is focusing on a suit that is actually in the Superior Court now on Article 12 of our Constitution on financing education and the financing formula for education, which is something that you hear about constantly in this state.
Yeah.
The financing formula for education.
The formula for
Yes,
financing,
and
which
you better be up on your calculus.
Exactly.
Okay. So maybe we should step back a minute and say, what is a representative government? The truth is that you are trying to make sure in every way possible that every citizen, and your responsibility as Rhode Island, has the possibility of living into the philosophy and the structure of representative government.
I would say redistricting immediately.
But it's so hard with government these days. It's almost like it's too big that people feel disconnected from it. Like on a small scale,
That's true.
I'm involved in a condominium association board, and people really get that. They understand how it works. But you get to the national, state, and national level, and people don't relate. It's like the fact that children going into a supermarket don't actually connect the food to the animals or the plants. They just think you buy this package in the supermarket. And I think our government is the same way, that it's gotten so big and so distanced from everybody that people don't really connect voting and what what politicians' positions really mean to them on a daily basis.
And another way that we do exactly what Hollie's saying, another way that we bring people in and educate what the importance of the vote is, because that's exactly where we came from with the League. We say 1920, but even before that, the late 1800s, there were several women going over to London to the conference there, and the idea of giving the vote. Frederick Douglass, all of these people. But here, right now, presently, we're we're educating them with events and partners that we have. Our partner good government organizations are really important, with Common Cause, John Marion at Common Cause, the ACLU, the reproductive justice. You talk about health and women's health. We're
the Access Rhode Island.
The Access Rhode Island, which I'm on the board now. They've been invited to the board. And those partners, the Access Rhode Island board, which talks about good government and accountable government, open records, open meetings, and that is, all of those on the board are our good government partners. The Providence Journal, WRNI, and Karen Resendiz was the news director there, John Marion, Stephen Brown from ACLU. All of these are partners we work with. Events that we plan together. For example, on March 29th, we have a very wonderful event with partners Common Cause, Roger Williams University School of Law, the Hasenfeld Institute at Bryant University. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone, but that is on a constitutional convention, which is a large issue right now. The talk about whether it is good for our state to have a constitutional convention. The Constitution says every 10 years, so it will be on the ballot because the Secretary of State will put it on the ballot. But it's a wonderful forum, 4 hours, lunch in between, with 2 Rutgers lawyers coming in to discuss. So again, all of us partnering together to get these issues out to the public. That is a very difficult item, an issue. How many people really know about what the Constitutional Convention could do or cannot do? So all these ways are how we...
If we haven't watched and really experienced it, probably we don't. Well, we only have 1 minute left, and so if each of you would just say something that seems important that we haven't covered, because we had so much to cover. I wonder, I have down here that one of the things you're really interested in is natural resources, which seems really interesting to me that you were dealing with that, because I had no idea of it.
It's true, and we have expanded our horizons, haven't we? But we have an agriculture study. Hollie talked about the idea of doing a study, and then we have to come to consensus. So we have an agriculture study throughout the entire country that is one of our most recent issues.
Well, that sounds really important, and as we experience all the snows and rains and blowing. Anyway, I want to thank both of you for being here and for trying to summarize this huge megalopolis that you're helping to run. The League of Women Voters, this is Jane Koster and Hollie Courage, and I like your last name, from the League of Women Voters, and hopefully you will vote, you will register, and you will tell other people about the candidates and what they're doing. Please attend a debate, and please look online to find out more about the League of Women Voters. Thank you for watching Good News Rhode Island. Good news is right around the corner, and probably you're helping to make it, even just or mostly by voting. Thank you.